heating session. Oh, there we go. To our radiant heating session. It's been long anticipated since we kind of made that video at Mellon Homes back in, I think that was in September. And so we've really wanted to kind of have a session now dedicated to this topic and just learning more and learning from some people who know more than David and I do. So without further ado, you know us, we're going to be leading the session, me and David. If we haven't met, then I'm the Net Zero Engagement Officer. David, everybody knows David. I'll just assume. And so in today's session, just a brief kind of overview. What we're going to do is some introductions to kind of why we're doing the session and to our great speakers. And then we're going to have some questions for the panel that have already kind of been written, and then a Q&A with the audience. So if you have any questions at the end, we'll definitely have a dedicated, like hopefully 30-35 minutes to some good questions, and then we'll do our closing at the end. And so why we wanted this session, kind of what I just said, we've really been interested in this topic. It was something that we learned in September about, and have just really been trying to do more research and getting more information for tenants and for landlords, just so that we can kind of offer all the information that we have. So I'll kick it off to David now.
So one of the fundamentals, some of you may have heard by now, is there's a lot of tenants on this session today, which is, I think that what you need to be asking a landlord as we move through net zero is, would you have this in your own home? And I think it's a fundamental question as we look at implementing, these solutions across Wales. So most homes, I know it's a generalization, but there's a lot of EPCD, that's the energy efficiency rating, mine is, as is most of you probably. I hope it's not worse, and hopefully, I hope some of you are better than that. But we need to get to a higher standard. Now that standard's still being argued, WHQS2, but whatever, we need to decarbonize our homes. We need to do better. And it's a massive, massive challenge in terms of resources, money, changes to your lifestyle. There's a lot of properties to do, in social housing, private rent sector, and there's a number of solutions out there. And this is why I think and if we just move on.
Yeah.
There isn't, to me, there's a number of solutions out there. And when we're looking at these solutions and when new tenants are involved in them, I think there's some fundamental questions about cost to implement it. What's the speed? How long are they going to be in your home, changing over from gas to whatever solution? What's the disruption? The skills needed to implement these new technologies and maintain them, and the tenant considerations, say usability, the costs, the experience as you go forward. That's the lifespan of some of these things. People joke about gas boilers being 10 years. Mine pretty much packed up on 10 years. It was like as if it had flicked the switch. And maintenance, resources to make them as well. So things like wind turbines are on the background here. Great, generate green energy, but a lot of resources make them, and they're not exactly great to recycle at the end of them. And this is why this technology, this concept, radiant heating, infrared heating, came to our attention, because it starts ticking, in my opinion, a number of boxes in terms of lifespan and the resources to make it and stuff. It feels a really interesting technology. We'll see what you think of it at the end. And so we created this session because we wanted you to be informed and been part of the solution. And one solution doesn't fit all. Each house, each home, each lifestyle will be different. And also, one of the reasons we created this session was people who seem to be liking or interested in this subject. So Gerald, who's going to be introduced in a minute, was one of the people who started us on this journey. So I respect and got real passion for this subject. And there's also, since then, some of you know Robert Llewellyn. Hannah won't, because she wasn't even born when this was when things like Red Dwarf was a TV program. He's reinvented himself, and somebody I really respect in terms of his, he just got everything electric. He's got it in his own home, this type of technology, and he's got access to, he's got money, he's got access to a number of solutions, and he's got this type of solution in his own home. And that's, I think, quite telling. And this person here, you won't know, but I've got a whole admiration for her. Her name's Tanya Jennings, and she's at Ealing Council, but she's leading a lot of London's decarbonisation. Very, like Hannah, tough speaking American, and she says what she thinks, and she's quite talking about stop chasing unicorns, things like hydrogen heating and stuff. You know, we need to act now, and and this type of technology is one we could really act now on. So this is partly why I say we wanted this solution. Not solution, we're going to talk about it today. Yeah.
So just to mention before we get into the actual session, there's an event on the 7th of February that I'll be running. It's a one-day conference with 3 really exciting sessions called Creating Sustainable Communities for a Net Zero Future. So this kind of takes the focus away from just the individual tenant's home and kind of expands it to how we can become more sustainable as an entire community. So I'm really excited for it. We're going to be having great speakers talking about community energy, circular economy, electric vehicles, and I really encourage you to sign up. It's free for tenants and a very low cost for staff, and also free to community volunteers. So some of these organizations within this session will have volunteers that will also be there to offer some great information and knowledge. So I look forward to seeing you there. And then lastly, before we get started, I'm offering a net zero training, a learning and development support sessions. So I'm really just passionate right now about getting tenants involved, getting staff up to date on what's happening in net zero. And so if you're interested and want to get your organization or panel more up to date on basics of net zero or more complex things of net zero, just shoot me an email, and we have tons of different options for what can be covered, and it's really customizable. So just let me know, and I can enter my email at the end as well. And so finally, we're gonna get started. We have our speakers. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves, but we do have Merthyr Valley Homes and then ASTECtherm, who is kindly joining us from Germany. So without further ado, I'm gonna kick it off to Gerald and stop sharing just for a brief intro.
Good morning, everybody. As Hannah said, my name is Gerald Charles. I work for Merthyr Valley Homes, and I stumbled across this technology as trying to find an alternative to air source heat pumps. I don't have a problem with air source heat pumps. They have their place. They don't have their place everywhere in Welsh homes was the bigger problem. A typical Welsh terrace is not going to facilitate an air source heat pump. And through research and everything else, I was eventually found myself in contact with Galvin and his team. And the product, once you start to understand how it works, which Galvin will go into, and the benefits to it, putting aside how the technology works, there's a lot of benefits to using it too, in terms of decarbonization and potentially also health benefits. It's definitely ticks a lot of boxes as a housing association. And hopefully I'll be able to answer any questions that you have that relate to the social housing side. I'll leave the technology to Galvin. Thank you.
Perfect. And then if Galvin, you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and Adam?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, sorry, we had to re-register and I had proper panic attacks. Do apologise. So the Wi-Fi died. Anyway, we're here. So my name is Galvin Broughton. We've been installing heating. This is Adam Butcher. So
I'm the sales director of ASTECtherm.
Hi guys, how you doing? So we've installed over 1,000 from bathrooms right up to multiple homes, apartments. So everything in between with the heating, with some amazing feedback. People just love it. It's an amazing product. We are actually in Germany at the minute. Been to see the suppliers, got some really exciting new transformers that we can utilize, and also new ways of controlling the system. So yeah, people, we sell a lot of heating on the back of people experiencing it in their mate's house, and then they ring us up and go, I need that in my house. So that's a good testament to how good the heating is. It's very efficient, and I'll go into more detail about the heating. in a bit when Anna stopped drinking a drink, and I'm thinking I need a drink of water.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Nice to meet you all. Hello, everybody.
Perfect. And then did you have some slides that you wanted
I do,
to?
yeah. So right. So let's just hope technology works. Let me just share my screen. 1 second. Share screen. Can you see? Can you see this?
Not yet.
1 second. We are in Germany, so we're on a different network. So it's saying, bear with me, I just have to rejoin. I do apologize because we're on a different network. If you just talk for a minute, Anna, we'll rejoin because it's asking me to like give permission for it. I do apologize.
No, that's okay.
Good, isn't it? So yeah, thanks to Germany. Back in 2 seconds.
Hannah, if you want, I can explain a little bit about in terms of some of the points that David raised was interesting in terms of disruption. And I think the honest answer is it's very disruptive. A bit more so than you would for an air source heat pump. You know, there's no point in beating around the bush. It's just that's just the way it is because of the method of installation. So yes, it is disruptive. What you would probably find in terms of housing associations, the most likely route that would be followed is that we would go down the voids route to start and sort of try to perfect the method that Galvin would teach us to use, so that when it came time to installing it into a tenanted property, the contractors that we're using would have the method down pat, and then we could potentially do an installation program where, you know, anywhere from say 10 to 50 properties could be done at one time, and that would minimize the amount of disruption. So it was an interesting question that from the tenant's point of view, we hadn't really gone that far, because the idea really is to start in a voids property and then work our way towards a fully tenanted program.
Mm.
Sorry, Galv, I'll
Sorry,
leave it back
guys.
to you.
I'm now back. God, I don't do stress very well. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see
Let
it.
me just go back to the beginning. So we are ASTECtherm. The product, like I said, that we use, it's fully controllable via a thermostat. We can zone properties however people want. So you can, what we generally find is people sleep at different temperatures. So some people like a cool room, some people like a warm room. So we generally zone those all together, or separately, sorry, and then all downstairs would be on, you know, like a normal heating system. But again, we can specify the heating with Adam and his team to do however you want. So just take you through the slides. So this is the heating material. We've been to see the suppliers, and they've given us very kindly some to show you guys. So this is it. So it's got thousands of holes in it. So what we do, we either have a system that you can plaster in. I don't know if anyone's seen it. It can be plastered in, or we've got another system which can go behind the board. So like it will minimize the amount of issues, you know, like for dust and things like that. But we need to talk through all those different installation ways that we can do it. So this is basically the system. It uses a carbon technology. So it's basically nanotechnology, little tiny tubes which are filled with pico-sized particles of metal. It makes it super conductive, and the actual surface area is up to 4 times more than what you actually see. So you don't need to cover the entire ceiling when you're doing an install. Just get some figures from there. So the big thing about the heating is the efficiency. People want to try and reduce their heating bills. And it's up to, if you imagine you put radiators in, so you've got storage radiators or panel radiators, or some of the infrared panels that people use, it's more efficient, up to 70% on some products, like electrical underfloor heating as well. So I want to go through the next one. So these are some of the benefits of far infrared. I will read them down to you, but people can read. I don't want to like make out that people can't read what's in front of them.
The slides moved on. I don't know if that led to.
It's what, sorry?
I think we see it on the first slide.
You're on the first slide still?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Right, so if I now...
There, yeah, we can see it.
You can see that. Shall I just zoom in slightly? This is using the camera because I couldn't make it all work on the other product. So there's some of the benefits of infrared. Thank you for letting me know. There are many benefits of infrared, and people living with it get what when we tell them this, they go, well, it sounds too good to be true. It's not. These are fact. So from the top, it's cheaper to run than radiators, as I said before. It's a low surface temperature. I'm going to show you a video in a bit where you can see the actual see what it keeps doing on my screen. The actual surface temperature gets to around 35 degrees because that's maximum. So people say, well, it cracked the plaster. No, it won't. It just gives a nice warm ambient feeling to any room that it's in. A big one for us at the minute, and you know it was in the newspapers that young man who died due to the state of his home. It will help to eliminate mold. It won't stop, obviously, if there's problems with damp and water flow coming from somewhere, you know, but it will actually kill the mold bacteria. Low surface temperature. So again, the temperature of the mats, although they get to 30 odd degrees, if you put your hand on the ceiling, you only feel, because you've got to imagine your hand is still, your body's 35, 37 degrees Celsius. So you're not going to go, oh, the red hot. It just feels warm on you. You're being heated by light rather than heat. So the heating will dissipate from the mat 170 degrees from the panel. So everything we specify, Adam's side, it will specify for every single house, so you get a full even coverage throughout the home. So everything in the room. So what happens is everything up to 3.5 meters away will come warm from the ceiling. So as long as your ceiling heights aren't above 3.5 meters, and generally people don't have ceiling heights that high, then it'll warm. So everything becomes warm. Every object in the room becomes warm, and then the byproducts of that is those become like little mini radiators. So the longer you leave it on, the more efficient the heating is. So people like taking it right the way back down to 3 or 4 degrees overnight. We don't sort of say to use it, just take it so it runs from down to maybe 15 degrees, and then in the morning when the heating comes on again using thermostat, it'll go back up to like 17, 18, 19, 20 degrees. I've got to be honest, 21 degrees with infrared is too warm for anybody because it's a different sort of heat. It's sort of 19 degrees is perfect, and what people have given us feedback on. You'll feel the infrared within sort of 5 minutes. Although the room won't feel warm, you'll start feeling warm because, again, it's like when the way I describe it is if you go into on a cold day and you walk from behind a building into where the sun is, you feel warm. And like if you go when it's snowing outside and then you feel that infrared on your skin, you feel that pretty much instantly. The heater has been tested to TUV standards. There's no health issues with it. It's healthy. So we sell it to schools, care homes, hospitals, people like that. So you know it's been fully tested. So any problems with any health, there's none. You've got to imagine with any sort of regular heating system where you have a radiator, you have like a circle, and it creates a dust within your home. So you have it so that it's coming round, and then that creates dust. So it reduces that whole problem of dust. So people are suffering with any sort of asthma or any breathing difficulties. There's no radiators. Sorry, the font's really small. I need some new ones of these. Sorry. So there's no radiators, obviously, but people say to me, can you dry your clothes? Because it's quite important in the home if you can dry your clothes. If you have an error, it's absolutely brilliant for drying clothes. I don't know why, but it seems to work really, really well. And also I heard earlier about when you install it, what the maintenance is. There's no maintenance. Once you install it, we have a fit and forget system. So it's installed, done. We have guarantees on the mats for a lifetime of the ceiling of the building. We did have a guy who decided that it'd be a great idea to put a loft hatch in after we fitted the heating system, and then said it's not working. I'll tell you the reason why, sir. You've got a big hole in your ceiling. So I'll just go on to the next slide. So we've got lots and lots of happy customers that have. Can you see the next slide where it's got really nice smiley face on you? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, we are the UK's #1, and we have been for a long time in supplying this sort of technology. And you know, I'm more than happy for anybody to speak to any of my customers and you know, get feedback on what we do, the way we do business. We excel in customer service. That's what we focus on. We like, I said in that meeting, I said, I don't like unhappy customers. That's quite rude. I don't want people to be unhappy with the system. I want it to be installed. Then they go, mate, this is unbelievable. And then tell everybody else, because there's nothing better than third party selling. But, you know, that's a different side of what we're doing. So let's go to the next slide. This is just some feedback. So just to give you some background, the guy on the left-hand side, I hope you can all read this. Don't need to zoom in on this, anybody, for the font. No. So the guy on the left-hand side, he's actually an architect, but he was going to try it. And he said, look, you know, I'm going to try it, and then he basically pushes it to all of his customers, saying it's, you know, this is the way forward as far as he's concerned. But this is it's a conversion that he did. So you can see there, for the same time, the same period, but it's actually colder the year that he actually installed it from the previous one. He's, you know, you can see the same as there. They're pretty obvious to read. This guy in the middle is really funny. so his wife says, "This don't work. I'm going to have your thingies on a plate." Anyway, so what he had to do, he had to install fuse spurs all around his house, just in case the heating didn't work. But luckily for him, it worked, and it's working a treat. The guy on the right side, actually in Mid Wales, Steve Smith. That's a new build property. So he actually delivers oil to people for their houses to heat them. So quite surreal that he's actually installed a thing. But you can see there, that's a thermal imaging camera showing the heating in his ceiling. You can see it there. And this one here in the middle, again, is using a thermal imaging camera just to show where the heating is. But you can see on the middle one, I'm talking really fast because I'm nervous. The middle one is, you can see the downlights are cut through it. So you can actually cut holes through the material, but you can't cut through the sides because it stops heating from working. But you can cut downlights up to 75 millimeters through the mats. And here's a quick video. If I show you this, this is a property which has been done throughout. It's a really old property. I think it's like 350 years old. So what they did, they went in, they insulated the property, you know, to quite high, not to passive build, but to quite high insulation values. And then we heated the building. So I won't take all the way to the end because it's quite a long video, but just to show you, it shows you the floor temperature.
The mats now start to warm up very quickly. These are 28, 29 degrees.
But you'll see here where the floor temperature is, because we had on for about 2 hours, so the floor temperature is already 21, but the floors will get up to 27 degrees Celsius. So, you know, nice and comfortable when you walk into your kitchen. It's just lovely and warm. So you can see how the mats are all integrated, and you don't see them. You just see a painted ceiling.
It's been an amazing job working with the ARB architecture.
I can't still listen to my voice, so but you get the gist from that. So I'll finish off by saying thank you very much for your time, and thank you for listening to us. And then also, I'll finally say, if you watch Channel 4 on, what day is it on?
Monday night,
8 o'clock. We're heating the Amazing Spaces builds on Channel 4 with George Clark. So you'll see us, sorry?
for the 10th anniversary.
For the 10th anniversary. So he's doing an eco build property. So you can see our lovely faces again if you want to see us again on Channel 4 at 8 o'clock. So yeah, thank you so much. Woo, and relax.
You did it.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I love doing stuff like this. Can you tell?
Great. No, that was a great presentation. And
I'll stop sharing my screen. Stop sharing.
okay, yeah, and I think really showed kind of what it looks like, because I think when David and I went and saw it at Mellon Homes, you know, we were like, what is this? And they didn't have it plastered over so you could see it. And you're able to touch and feel it, and they had an example of it, and it was just crazy to us. So we do have some questions, a few from the chat. I'm just going to run through a few of these intro questions that I have, just because I think they might answer the questions from the chat. So just to start, if whoever wants to take the question, go ahead. What do you think is the biggest thing that makes it different from any other kind of net zero solution or system?
So there are things with people. I've actually got a Facebook group with 47,000 people in now that are all self-builders. And if you're building a property and it's up to passive standards, you know, air source heat pump is a really good option for you. But for anyone else who's got a a home and you're retrofitting it and you're having to go around, insulate, do all the other things, then you know us people are being recommended not to use them. So air source heat pump got their place, and 100% they're obviously selling them and they're doing very well but we have a lot of people complaining about the running costs. The thing with the way our heating system works is because it's we can go in and retrofit it. We have got different methods where you don't have to have your whole house disturbed, and because so we have a way of overboarding, so you don't have to plaster. So it's a really good way of as a retrofit, you don't have to like start ripping walls out and putting pipes in. You've got to put bigger pipes in for air source heat pump. I'm trying to think of all the other, there's not many more apart from the infrared panels, but the infrared panels get very hot. And we had a lady, didn't we? She actually had one in the house, and it was getting over 100 degrees. It was making her feel sick, and you know we laughed because the fact is we did tell the chap, and he says, well, she wants to do it, so she's the boss. She wears the trousers. That was the funny bit of it. So yeah, I mean that there are different methods of heating, but we just know that we get amazing feedback, and to coin a phrase, we have some people that even they put underfloor heating downstairs and then put our heating upstairs and then ring us back and go, we wish to put it everywhere, because it just works, and it does what it says on the tin. It heats your home very, very efficiently. Sorry, that was a really roundabout way of answering your question. I do apologize.
That's okay.
I am called Mr. Tangent, just to make you aware of that. So.
I think Hannah, from the social housing point of view, we look at it as from a different point of view, because obviously the people that Galv deals with tends to be self-builded and people who are doing their own private restorations or renovations, whereas we've got to look at it from, you know, we got a lot of stock we have to do, and it's how much we can do and how much of an effect we can have. So it ticks the boxes in terms of the requirement from government that we stop installing gas boilers from 2026, because it allows us another way to heat the house without using gas. It's also has a lot of, you know, as Gav pointed out, it's safer than having something that heats up really hot, and small children, or if you have people with disabilities, we can't have them too close to these products that go over anything beyond 40 degrees. It's just too warm. There's too many risks associated with it. And then there's the sustainability of it. It's how long the product lasts for. An air source heat pump is 10 to 15 years, same as your gas boiler. Whereas this is, you know, as long as the ceiling stays up, the product stays working. You know, you drill holes through it, you can put your light fittings, your carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, your smoke sensors, you can drill through these things as long as you don't cut the main parts. There's no problems with it. It will just continue working.
These here are the main parts, the copper strips on either side. You can't cut through those. So yeah, there's a lot of questions being asked, so we need to get them answered, don't we?
Yeah.
In terms of answering the question from Joanne, that this is an important part, you know, especially for a housing association, what I will say is that it's comparable. If anything, the product that Galv is recommending, the supplies, the one that we're recommending, is that it's probably slightly cheaper in the long run in terms of overall costs. There'll be properties with air source heat pumps that it tends to get pretty expensive the more rooms you have, and depending on the insulation, whereas Galv's product is the way that Adam does the calculations, it kind of works out that in some properties it will be cheaper, but in overall it definitely works out cheaper. But they are comparable in quite a few of the properties.
Sorry, Gerald, you also have the issue that because people say, oh, you're going to say the rubbish. You're going to say, I'm not saying air source heat pumps rubbish. I just mean that if you can have a heating system in your house where every year you don't have to have some bloke rocking up at your house and going, I need to another overall of your bearings, or your bearings have gone. It's no, you know, the longevity of the products as well is yeah, it's there.
To be fair, so can I just jump in, Hannah? Well, part of the great ORP program that Welsh Government are funding is to test and learn. And one of the tests I think Melon are doing is 2 identical flats that they've got. And they've got air source heat pump in one, the radiant heating in the other. And they're running, I think, quite a scientific test of these 2 flats. And that's why they're quite excited by this type of solution, what we're seeing so far. So I'm guessing at some point that Melon tests will feed back into the ORP program, and there's various technical, every landlord will have people inputting into it, and that sort of data I hope will become available, certainly to the sector. Whether it gets down to us, another conversation. But yeah, there are tests going on, and it's quite interesting. I also wanted to mention one thing, that it's not just about cost and installation to me, it's the tenant experience. So I've watched a number of videos, testimonials, been on a lot of chat sites, and people talk about the heating being a nicer type of heat.
Yeah.
Maybe Galvin or Gerald mentioned.
Yeah, yeah.
People talk about being in the sunshine. It's not stifling central heating heat. But yeah.
Yeah, it just feels like it's weird, isn't it? The German seller is feeling is believing. I can't use that because it sounds really corny, but it's true, because you have to I mean, there's a question here: is there anywhere we can go to experience heating? We are looking at we're going down meeting a lady called Cassie next Friday at this showroom place. So what we're going to do is see where there's an area. We'll fund it. We'll install the heating, and then people can actually go there, walk into the room, and experience what it feels like. And I think that's a it's a priority if if it moves ahead. So. Can I just answer this question here? So Amanda Lawrence, so if there are any faults, etc., I'm relaxing a bit more now. If there are any faults, etc., will you be responsible for the repairs or the maintenance? So the thermostats come with, Adam,
5 years,
5-year warranty. So we offer a 5-year warranty on the thermostats. If a thermostat goes wrong, that's the only thing really that we've had 2 in the time. So literally, you'll have a new one delivered the next day. If you are part of a group, and you'll have people that come and fit it for you, and it takes 5 minutes to replace it, and it says who'll be responsible long term. We will be here, and we will remain here as technical support for however long I survive. So yeah, if I'm here and Adam, and my son is going to come into business and he's 20. We want people to know that we are here to support them, and not think, oh my God, it's here. What do I do if it goes wrong? If you have any questions about it, how to set your thermostats up properly, we can talk you through all that as well, so that it works for you and your family. So some people go out in the morning, they don't come back till 5 or 6 o'clock at night. Some people in the homes all day. We can show you how to do it the most efficient way, so that you're not having massive electric bills at the end of the month, which we don't want people having. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
From a social housing point of view, in terms of having the product in, what changes is that you don't need your gas safety check done anymore. What we are looking at is moving the electrical test to an annual rather than a 5-yearly. And then that would also give us the assurance that the system is working at the same time. That it's not that the system's in any doubt, it's more of an assurance to the regulators and to the government that we're doing everything we can to ensure safety. And then at the same time, there's still the requirement for us to do what's called a non-gas safety check. And it means that the electrical engineer that comes into the property to do the electrical test would fill in that paperwork at the same time. So 1 visit rather than 2. There's no maintenance on them, so there's savings there straight away. And then Amanda, as you asked about pins and things like that, as long as you don't physically cut the copper strips, the product continues working.
Don't use bullet points in present.
There you go.
Hello?
What happened there?
Don't know what was happening there.
Video started playing. Sorry. There you go.
The other thing, Amanda, I wanted to mention was in terms of maintenance. I think Lynn Rowlands will be interested in this, which is heat pumps have to run quite big cycles of Legionnaire testing or flushing itself out regularly, and that's taking power and energy that you're paying for. But it's a compliance issue or a safety issue. Therefore, there's always that question, and I'm sure if I didn't mention it, Adra would, tenants would, which is, where does that responsibility lie? This doesn't have that type of thing in it, so it just works, and it doesn't need that level of flushing and retesting and resetting itself.
Yeah, it's either on or it's off. That's the important thing. You know, one of my concerns with the air source heat pump is in terms of the problems that we have today with cost of living, is an air source heat pump isn't off. It has to run constantly all the time.
Yeah.
There's a cost to that, and that cost, as the cost of electricity goes up, so does that running cost. One of the things that appealed to me the most about Galv's product is the fact that you can zone every single room. And someone asked about motion sensors. Well, the idea really would be that you'd put them in your bathroom so that when you walk in, it turns on, and then it'll stay on for a few minutes or a few seconds, and then when you walk out, it's off. But it was the ability to zone every single room. And it also ticks another box from a social housing point of view, in the sense that for EPC, the more you zone, the higher the rating. So, you know, it's helping everybody at the same time.
So just back to the bathroom, because the good thing about the heating is if you leave it ticking over 15 degrees, it's because everything is warm, it actually decreases the amount of cleaning you have to do, because the water will dry off and it won't leave the horrible little scummy things all over it. So it won't obviously eliminate cleaning, but I'm just saying, just little things like that, it just makes your life better in so many ways. It's just a great system.
I think that's one.
Yeah, so sorry, there's a lady asked earlier, are there any videos? I was actually trying to find a video. There's some bloke started yapping on about some advert. I was trying to find a video for the lady that asked, is there any videos of how they will be interrupted? If you go onto YouTube and search ASTECtherm, you get to see us doing like an installation video like that. But it's more hints and tips of people actually doing the install, but it gives you an insight into what is involved in getting everything all lined up and ready for the installation.
Thank you, Galvin. I was looking at it in terms of the disruption to tenants. Hello. I was the one that asked the question.
There you are. Hello.
I was looking at it in the sense of what disruption would happen to tenants.
Yeah, I mean, that in itself is something we have to, because we don't want to come to people's house and turn your house upside down and make your life hell for a few days. We want to make it as easy as possible. So that's why we're in Germany at the minute. We're looking at more not intrusive ways to bring this new form of heating to people's homes. So we will work with the team to make sure. Someone asked this question here: are there enough skilled people to install the product? It's basically an electrician who's had some knowledge of. It's very, very basic, and any electrician worth their salt can do it. And if it's a plastering, I'm not sure you want someone coming in plastering around your house, so we can look at a different option where it could go behind the board. And can I just, while you're on, because I like looking at you, so while you're on, someone said, will it heat my attic space? So what we do, we look at the insulation. If you're in a bungalow, for example, where this gentleman was, we would make sure the insulation is, because that's what we're going to do, they're going to insulate your property, make sure lots of insulation, and then we put a reflective membrane behind the heating, and then we'd overboard it. And because again, you're being heated by light, so that's something else that we, there are lots of different ways. Well, there's 3 different ways. There's not lots, that's a lie. There are 3 different ways of doing it. So, but we will make it so that you are as least troubled by it as possible.
Okay, and you can regulate it like you would gas heating.
100%, yeah.
Temperatures.
Yeah, down to 0.5 degree. You can, is it 0.5 or yeah, 0.5 a degree. You can have it. So let's say, for example, one morning it's a bit chill outside. You think, God, I want it at 19.5 instead of 19. And then the other plus side is it helps. I suffer really badly with arthritis in my hands, and it helps me with my arthritis as well. So the benefits of infrared are massive. It's really, really healthy way of heating a home. So yeah, like the headphones. Cool.
I think something else that tenants are concerned about is lifestyle changes. I mean, with air source heat pumps, there's been a lot of conversations about, like Dave mentioned, having to keep your windows shut, and through the summer, then you're melting because the system's on 24/7. And so could either of you kind of walk us through some of the potential lifestyle or behavioral changes that tenants might see, if there are any?
The
And
ones
also-
that the ones I've come across, specifically dealing with how the infrared would work, is the most noticeable thing you're going to see is how you use that room. I can't emphasize that enough, because if you imagine where you have a radiator in your bed, in your room, let's just take, for example, the lounge. That wall where that radiator is one that you have to consider in terms of how you place things, where you place things, because that radiator needs to be able to work. It changes how you use your room. If you remove that radiator, you now have 4 walls that you can do anything you want. You can push a sofa right up against it. If it's your bedroom, you can have your bed go up against that wall. There's no restrictions in how you use it. Everything is in the ceiling. It's completely out of sight, out of mind. So from a lifestyle point of view, it changes how you use your space. One of the other things, Galv touched on was arthritis. That's a known fact about infrared. Hospitals use them to kill COVID. So bonus, it kills mold, and it is a healthier environment to live in. Infrared's used in hospitals for long-term bedridden patients because of the effects of the light on the body, sort of similar to the sun, if you like, in terms of vitamin D. It's a healthier environment. These are known things. I'm not telling you stuff that we've guessed. These are proven facts about it. I wouldn't say something that wasn't a given. So these are definitely things in terms of lifestyle that there are a lot of benefits to it. So unless you have anything else to add on that, Galvin, there's
sorry, I was thinking of, are there any negative things to it? But we don't know of anything negative. That's what I was thinking. But there are lots and lots of positives to weigh. I mean, the fact is nothing more annoying, is there, that you have a especially with, I went to property with air source heat pump. I think they get the radiators from Arnold Schwarzenegger. They're like 3 times the size of normal. So you don't have to design your room around radiators. In that, like you said, that is a big plus, because it's like in my property, I've got a really old property, and the good lady will not let me rip down the ceilings because it's got really old wallpaper and stuff on. Anyway, but having a radiator there, we have to literally you can't have a sofa in front of it because it totally eliminates the use of the radiator. So yeah, it's very good. I'll shut up.
The only thing I would add though is this is a heating system, whereas I know there's been a little bit of knocking air source heat pumps, and we'll run an air source heat pump event with the suppliers who state their arguments. But this is a heating system. You still need a hot water system. Whereas an air source heat pump will do both. And so in the Robert Llewellyn example he used earlier, I think he has got a thermal battery or something else to do the water. So you would need 2 systems to get your head round rather than just one.
A lot of properties already have 2 systems. If you've got a cylinder in your property, the moving towards the split system, if you like, is not. I think the easiest way to explain it is if I were doing, because I've done air source heat pumps into properties, and you still have to put a cylinder in for an air source heat pump. It's not an additional cost when it comes to installing infrared. That there's no additional cost. It is part of the cost. So when I said that the prices are comparable, the reason I'm saying that is because the cylinder is required for both systems anyway. And the idea would be that you would go for a smart system, something that's future-proofed and that you can connect all sorts of future technologies onto. So it would have been required either way. It's needed in both systems. So that's the reason I didn't I didn't add it into the conversation in terms of the hot water, because ground source, air source, you still have to have that cylinder.
Cool. And I think one clarifying thing before we continue with some of the other questions is I saw in the chat in the beginning, how do you turn it on? I think people want to turn it on.
Just
how do you turn it on?
So the thermostats they're on. So when you walk into your room, you'll have a thermostat that sits on the wall. Is shown in there are different variants, but that will basically be your control for every single zone that we zone. and it just sits there and it just does what it does. We don't have to worry about it. We will help you program them. As long as you don't get your grandchildren coming in and pressing millions of buttons and then thinking it's a Space Invader game. But then, you know, they're very, very intuitive, aren't they, Adam? Too.
Yeah. So we would help you set up,
Is that
you know, the times and temperatures that best suits your needs. Once they are set up, you just leave them. It would monitors the temperature. If you know, like any thermostat, if the room temperature is up to what's required, it switches off. It would then monitor it every 15 minutes. If the temperature's dropped, it would just click back in, send a signal to the transformer, which starts the transformer and puts heat back into the mats.
The only thing I would add to what Galvin and Adam have said, and I think it's difficult to try and get people to understand unless you feel it, but we heat our homes, well, up until recently, we were heating our homes to roughly about 21, 22 degrees Celsius. That is very warm in infrared terms. It probably wouldn't be in infrared, you probably wouldn't be going beyond 19 degrees. So 18, 19 is quite comfortable. It feels differently. That's one of the things that's at the moment when we talk about it, it's very theoretical because it's difficult for us to be able to tell you how it feels unless you sit under a canopy that has them, that you start to experience the difference of a 19 degrees in infrared and a 21 degrees coming from the radiator.
And that, following on from that, Gerald, that's why trying to educate people, I almost want them to you know, cover the display of the thermostat up, because like you say, we're used to higher temperatures, and when it's only people would look at that and it's be 19 degrees and they feel warm enough, but it appears on the screen that the room isn't warm enough, and it's just trying to get people to look at it and feel the heating in a different way.
So potentially maybe another behavioral change, but
yes,
enough if you're too warm, you know.
Yeah,
it's a good problem to have right now.
Turn it down, won't they? Exactly that.
Yeah.
And it's basically literally like an up and down on the things. So say one evening you an older generation of family comes around, they want it a bit warmer, you literally just press the button, just turn it up to whatever you want, you know, like a normal thermostat. It's very, very simple. Got loads of questions to answer.
And that again, it's a very big benefit because it's such a quick reacting system. You've not got to wait a couple of hours for it to cool down or warm up like you would with, the pumps. It's instant. You will notice the difference instantly.
There's a lady asking the question, Catherine, hi, asking about solar PV. So I'm not sure what the avenue that the housing associations are going down with solar PV, but it's like anything, any electrical heating system. If you combine solar PV with it, but my opinion is this: it's all right having solar PV, but when it's cold and when it's dark, that's when you want heating. And unfortunately, solar doesn't work when it's dark yet. Apparently, some magicians made some panels that do work at night. I'm yet to see them. But if you add solar PV with battery or just battery, and where there are ways now of charging batteries up overnight using a cheaper tariff using Octopus Energy and other suppliers. So you charge your batteries up overnight and then use that energy through the day and then into the evening where you need it. So yeah, but it's like anything solar. I'm sorry, it's Gerald typing. So there we go. That's my answer to it. Okay.
And I think I'll maybe ask the hard-hitting question is why are we just now seeing this? I think in social housing, a lot of people still are being introduced to the idea, and what have been the challenges of getting this into housing, and where do you see it going?
So we've been doing this. I left the RAF in 2012. I've been doing this since 2013. So I used to have people thinking I was some sort of like tin hat wearer. You're crazy. How can you heat from a ceiling? It's never going to work. So we've gone through the whole pain of sort of educating people, installing it, sometimes at no profit, just to try and get it into people's minds that it does work. But yeah, I mean, it's been hard, but now, we're now on national TV. We've won Grand Designs Awards. We are leading the way really in this technology, and more people are now embracing it. I like world leading architects. George Clark loves it, which is really, and he's really nice, by the way. If you ever think out of what people like, he's a dead nice bloke. He's lovely. But anyway, yes, that's been the challenge. It's been hard, hasn't it, mate?
Very hard.
Yeah. So you, Adam, so I'll let you 1 second, mate. So just that background. Adam used to work in underfloor heating for 12 years. 12, yeah. And I always used to think he's a really nice bloke. I'd like him to come work with me one day. Anyway, so he's now part of the team. So Adam, I took him to a place in Broadway in the Cotswolds, because he didn't believe it. He says, I don't get it. So I took him there, and
yeah, here I am today. I think it's very much like how a lot of our business is coming in. It's through recommendation. So you always need somebody to take the first jump, to experience it, and it goes on from there. I always use the experience of take my wife out for dinner. If you walk past a restaurant and there's hardly anybody in that restaurant, even though she's read good reviews about it, she won't go in there. She'll go to another restaurant that's busier. And it's the same principle. Everybody is following suit. So it's just educating people that there are other options. Don't just, don't be a sheep. Don't follow everybody to what's being pushed down of the pumps. But the important thing is experiencing it. And that wins it over. No matter how much we talk about it, unless people have got the ability to experience the heating, they're not going to be won over.
But you've also got the fact that there's a guy who's in Wales, got some other installs. So what we can do, we can arrange a few buses to his house, and we'll all go around. Joking. But I'd like to have somewhere where people can actually go and experience the heating. So that's going to be over the next 2-3 weeks. I'm going to make sure that happens if I can make it happen. To get some people.
To be fair, the point of why it hasn't has been talked about enough is that's the point of the Wales ORP programme, the Welsh Government funds, is to try these things out, get tenant feedback. There's a number of tests going on at the moment with this and all the other solutions out there, and I think that will help then create a community of practice, and we hope that more people will start considering this as an option as well. And that's partly why we're running these today. Yeah,
you've also got the fact that up until recently, gas worked, and it wasn't a problem. But now, after they keep changing the date, so whenever they stop installing gas into property, they need to find a different solution. And before the whole like electric was dirty, it's a dirty word. But we've been working with BRE as well, who are the sort of the UK's. On the front of your fridge, in basic terms, you'll have like an A, B, C, D, and E, and F, and G. And because it's electric, and we're not on their magical little spreadsheet as how efficient the heating is, just put it under electric heating, and it makes it so it sheds it in a poor light. So we're now going through the process where we can tell them how efficient it is compared to panel radiators and the infrared panels. So it makes it, and then gas is basically, it's doing that. Gas is going to the bottom and electricity going to the top, and the most efficient ways of heating are going to be up here. Just a quick one. We went to Scotland and we spoke to the Scottish government, and they are actually, they've just said we're just not bothered about SAT ratings. We don't care. We've tried air source heat pumps. They've just cost people £600 a month, and we're just going to rip them all out. So we don't care. We just want to put your heating system in. So unfortunately, we are up against it in the UK with regards to this SAT rating. People go, well, that SAT rating. There's nothing more efficient fact on the market than what we offer as a heating solution. So yeah.
Great. And then just for clarifying questions, somebody asked in the chat, is the cast you're referring to in Newport at the Robert Price Center?
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've had some tours there before with people. So once that's all settled, I'd be happy to figure out a tour to bring people.
Is that far from?
No, not far from us. No, we had an event there in the beginning of I think in October or so.
For some in here it will be far, but
yes, in North Wales it would be far, but not for this.
Have you seen this? Joanne has raised a hand at the bottom.
Yes. Joanne, did you have a question? Oh, I think you're on mute, Joanne.
There we go. Can you hear me? Yeah, I just wanted to ask really, how tenant friendly are these systems? Because I work in heating services for a local authority, and what we're finding is during the summer months, because of the cost of electricity, they're turning the air source heat pump off. Obviously, to get to the winter temperatures, they turn it back on. It's taken a very, very long time, using far more electricity than to get to the desired temperatures. So this is a fit and forget system. So during the summer months when they don't need the heating, is it cost effective, obviously with the prices at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we sort of say to people, we've set up the thermostat. So there's a button on the thermostat where, is it called holiday mode, Adam?
Frost protection.
Frost protection mode, where they can simply press the button and it won't go below 15 degrees. And generally in summer, the heating will not come on. So, you know, as a rule, say the odd night goes down to 11, the heating will literally just trickle on again and start heating the house again. But throughout summer, the heating won't come on, and you just leave it. All this will be told to everybody. We'll give full instructions on how they're very, very, very clever. So this is how clever they are. It blows me away. So let's say, for example, you go into it, really, because I've heard it loads now, but it used to. If you go into your bathroom in the morning and you want your bathroom to be 19 degrees, if you go in on the first morning and it's not, the thermostat will learn and it'll come on earlier. So they're very smart. That's what I'm trying to get at. They're very clever, and they're very, very easy and intuitive to use for your residents. But at the end of the day, we're on the end of the phone. We have people that can talk them through any problems, because we don't expect people in your position to become thermostat experts, for example. So yeah, you leave that to us.
Thank you. And I understand the systems are very clever. Unfortunately, some of our tenants aren't. I'm a tenant myself, and I'm not putting any tenants down, but we've got elderly tenants who've got air source heat pumps, and they really, really struggle. And I know it's a completely different system, but we do struggle to educate people. And sometimes it just proves more difficult because they're so used to having gas or oil or solid fuel, and as you said, it's a completely different lifestyle change. Unfortunately,
we can't sell the old dial ones anymore. It's called, is it IP 20 something 20, isn't it? Lot 20. So lot 20 is stopping us from using an analog thermostat now. So unfortunately, it's like with phones, isn't it? Phones become very, very complex for people, but they're just easy. There's an up and down button, and you press A, and then it just does what it does. It's very easy. I understand there are people living in I can't remember what they're called, where they have like my grandma used to live in, and she had dementia, but she had people going looking after her and stuff. So there's a way of locking them out, so they can't mess around with them and just leave them alone, and they just do what they do. There's a way of doing that as well.
Thank you. Can I just please say, for this recording, so I don't have this backlash on me, I wasn't insulting tenants. I'm talking, if this was my mum or my grandmother, you know, they'd probably not know how to use it, and I don't mean that in an offensive way.
You can tell by your face you don't mean it at all. It's all good.
We have a very patient team that spend, quite a few hours in a week talking through, the thermostat. So we're very experienced in that, with, setting them up and, making it work for the individual. So that's not a problem.
I think to build on what Galvin and Adam have said, Joanne, I think the thing, as a social housing and as the local authority, having tenants turning the air source heat pump off is a nightmare, because you now turn it back on, and we've got to get the engineers out to inspect it, and it needs to be serviced and maintained, and probably over the summer, it's having sat still, there's parts now that won't move. Whereas if Galv's product was turned off completely, turning it on is like turning on a light switch. You turn it back on, as long as the thermostat is set as it should be, which chances are it would be, it would just turn straight back on. That's highly unlikely to happen with an air source heat pump that's sat motionless for that period of time.
And the thermostats do actually have battery backup. So if you did switch it off completely over the summer months, switch it back on, Gerald, like you say, and it even remembers all of your settings. So off you go again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. And I think I saw a few questions about the actual installation time. So I think a few people had asked, for example, a 2-bed home, how long would it take to install?
2 to 3 days once we get people skilled.
Incredible.
Can I just clarify though, is that for a new build? Because most of the conversations we're having is around retrofit, you know?
Yeah, I understand that. Just to give you an idea, it depends on the home. So how people live and how much stuff they've got in the house. We have been into a few houses, and I can't believe how much people can fit into one home. But if that's on an average house where you can literally go in, electrician will go in, and that's what would you say? Probably, if I'm saying 2 to 3 days. That is if there's no issues with moving stuff around, like because people want pianos moving out of rooms like we had to in that house.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't realize how heavy a piano is. Christ. But anyway, so yeah, but like I would say, I'd say 5 days. You know, if you got to start ripping stuff, you know, moving furniture out of rooms and stuff like that. It just depends on the install. If it's overboarding, it's a lot quicker. The hardest thing is on a retrofit is getting the wires into place. That's the hardest thing. Once that's done, it's a breeze to do. It's easy. So, and you'll see it. You know, I'll say it's easy. We'll make it easy. We'll make sure the people. I've put messaging earlier on. I'll make sure that everybody that we interact with has full training. They won't be asking it, but they won't be asking questions. But if there are any questions moving forward, we'll be here for them. So, you know, I don't want it to be any issues, because it's going to be great for everybody. Sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once. I'm a bloke.
Yeah, we got lots
reading
of questions
and answering questions.
Yeah, and
So,
I think that one thing that you had mentioned, both of you, but if we could just kind of reopen the conversation, tenants are, and everybody's wondering about cost. How much is this going to cost them? Catherine had said at present, our smart meters can give us an idea of how much each appliance is costing us. Are they cost effective? Just if we could touch on that again.
From tenant perspective, not the
From
installation.
tenant perspective.
Yeah. So if you're let's go through an example. So let me get my magic phone. I'll do an example with you. So the cost per kilowatt, average kilowatt in Wales. Does anyone know what this is?
37, I think it is at the moment.
Yeah. So what the government state is, if you have a heating system on, they was it 9 hours a day, 170 days a year.
Yes.
That's what they're saying.
Yes.
So 0.37. So we've done some quotes for we're working with 11 other housing associations across Norfolk, Suffolk, and all over that area. And they're averaging about 4.2 kilowatts. So let's say 37p. So bear with me 2 seconds, times 100. So on average, if we were heating a home using infrared heating, we'd be around £900. But that's if the heating was on all the time. But the way the heating works, it doesn't work like a normal conventional heater. So we found out using data that we've had, it's probably half that. So so we now do radiators. The same property had 12 kilowatts of heating in. So ours was 4 was it 4 times 0.37 times 170 times 9. Jesus Christ, have you done that figure? So that's the figure. You can do it yourself. So that's the difference. It's a massive saving on using electric panel radiators, which is the only other option they've got. They don't want to put air source heat pumps in these properties. So it's about 1/3 of the energy running cost of anything else on the market. So if you do your working out of I work with Gerald on this to get some more figures. But yeah, but then if you integrate solar and battery, it becomes even cheaper to run. So yeah.
It's the zoning that will determine the final figure. So if we don't particularly like to sleep in a warm bedroom, so you wouldn't turn it on in your bedroom, but the living room is where we spend most of our time. So you would only heat the living room. If you compare it to gas or to an air source heat pump, that heating fluid, so it's what runs through the radiators, has to run through the whole house, irrelevant of whether the radiator in the bedroom is on or not. It still has to go up there. It has to move through the whole house. This would only be on in the bedroom, in the room that you are in, so in the living room. So if that room specifically is only 700 watts is being used, that's all you're going to pay for. That's it. You're not paying to heat a room that's not being used or to run a liquid through the whole house, or for a machine to sit outside your property and run when you don't need it. It's only on in the room where you want it on, period. That's it. So the amount of electricity that you use.
And then trickling over in the other rooms. So we try to educate people not to turn it off completely in the bedroom. Like I said earlier, if you have it so it's at 15 degrees, the difference between 15 degrees and 19 degrees is a lot smaller than taking it back from say 6 or 7. That energy that's used from there, we found it's the long-term running costs are a lot cheaper.
So Catherine, do you want me to run over that again, Catherine? Would you like me to explain it again?
I think maybe give it a quick overview again.
Okay, so the way that it would be done is that every room has its own control. So you wouldn't want your bedroom to be heated or to the same temperature, for argument's sake. You wouldn't want it to be the same temperature as your living room where you're sitting watching TV, because you wouldn't want it to be as warm. So it's different to how an air source heat pump or a gas boiler works, which would push the water. So it heats all the water and supplies it throughout the whole house. Even if the radiator is not being used, that water still has to move. And you still have to heat all of that water. You're only heating the room that you're in to the temperature that you want it. And the rest of the house, as Galv said, is to a trickle temperature. So it's keeping it at a steady temperature that isn't even near the one that you would have in the living room. The amount of energy that you're using is far less than any of the other systems would use or do use.
Yeah, do use.
Did that make more sense?
I think I saw that. David, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, just for the question of damp and mold. I want to go back to that because it's such a topical subject and dominating the social housing sector at the moment. I've seen arguments that this is a favourable technology for damp and mold, and I just wondered if maybe that could be expanded on, because you're also saying you've got different room temperatures, which is a very argument we use again. We try and talk to tenants.
Yeah, so yeah, I understand.
So
what we're trying to say, or not trying to say, what we're saying with the heating is that can I just say we're being evicted from our room to go to an aeroplane in 15-20 minutes. So just be aware of that fact.
That's okay.
So while we say keep the heating trickling over 15 degrees, it keeps that room above a temperature where it will allow the mold and mildew to start growing. So what you find is people go, oh my God, I can't afford to use these, so I never use that room, so I turn the heating off for that room. You can't eradicate the fact that if you've got a poor build and you've got water leaking through from outside, or you have running down water, and some of the pictures I saw on the news were just horrific. But if you have a room that's not going down to like 1, 2, 3 degrees, and the chance of the mold and mildews being able to grow, and the infrared, the light actually is. That's really weird, Hannah. You like looking over your scenery behind you, but I was just looking at it. Look at that boat over there.
Live.
So that's why we say leave it trickling over at 15 degrees, because it keeps the room at nice ambient temperature, and it basically stops it. We can't say it stops it because I can't say 100% whether that room is going to have any issues from the build side. So yeah.
Infrared kills mold spores.
It does, yeah, it does.
So if you turn it on, any mold spores that are in the air or on any surface are killed. So by not turning the product on, you're promoting mold in exactly the same way as with your heating, except in situations, as Galv said, if you've got water coming in through the walls or up through the floors, that's a completely different conversation. That's a fabric problem. That's not related to the heating.
It's amazing, but it's not like a miracle worker.
No.
Like no.
Yeah, and there's a question then from Amanda where she says, talking of wiring, how modern does the electric circuit need to be? Older homes may need electric upgrades.
Yeah, I mean they're quite handy. My son is with us in Germany, and he's a level 3 electrician. So what they would do is, if I think now you have to have a metal. Is it law, George, to have a metal fuse board? Yeah. So any any fuse boards needs to be metal anyway. And I think there's like a slow progression on that to try and change them. It's not an issue if you've got a plastic one, but I think moving forward they all need to be metal. And also, if there's not room in the fuse board consumer unit, because the system runs on a C-type breaker. It's all a bit technical, but basically you need a separate circuit for the heating. So if there's not room, then we would have to put a bigger consumer in, or a separate one just for the heating, like a smaller one, you know, on the side. But it's something like an electrician will do all day long, every day.
Building on from what Galv said, from a social housing point of view, we would probably upgrade the electrics, because if it couldn't take this heating, it probably needs to be upgraded anyway. Yeah. And we would need to upgrade the board at the same time, because it's a requirement that at the point where we do the electrics, we would need to upgrade the board. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. That would have been a requirement anyway.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then just one more question that there's another one, but one question that I saw was in new builds. I don't know, Galvin, if you can disclose, but have you guys been in touch with any homes in North Wales about getting it in from the start of the new build? Or
no. So we speak a couple of emails to a guy called Malcolm Davis, who's quite high up in the
he's on the call. Yeah. He's working in the background.
So we're trying to we are like I say, working with Scottish Government, and they're putting some new build and retrofit, and we're also working with 11 other housing associations across the UK, which are putting it again into new builds from the start. So obviously they don't need as much heating, they don't require as much heating as a retrofit, but the way we specify it, we look at heat loss calculations and we do a calculation from that. So the heating we put into the property, we have to, worst case scenario, so let's just say it goes down to -15. We have to make sure that the heating is adequate to heat that building at those temperatures. So but there's obviously less if it's a really well insulated property. But I think the way the house associations are looking at doing it is fabric first. It's critical. We have been on a panel on Grand Designs show a few times and working with like experts in that field, and it's true. It's like, you know, you put a heating system into a building and it's not well insulated, it's like heating a sieve. You have to insulate the property really well. Lots and lots of different technology on the market for insulating. There's paints, there's different like metal Mickey stuff. Some people might not remember it, like all like tinfoil type stuff. It's really, really good stuff. So if they start walking into house that stuff, don't start worrying, it's great. But yeah, just insulate and then make sure there's enough heating into the property, and we'll make sure that every house is cozy and lovely to live in. That's what you want at the end of the day, and really efficient.
Mm-hmm. And I think then just as we begin to maybe think about wrapping up, one thing that, you know, I've noticed since being in this job is education around these systems, and Joanne kind of raised this as well, as requiring a lot of education. I don't know if, Gerald, you had any kind of comments on what this would look like in educating tenants around it. And I think we're already seeing this with air source heat pumps and beginning to make the switch to leaving gas boilers. It will take lots of education, but that's part of it.
It's gonna, like you said, Hannah, it's going to be engagement. Tenant engagement is going to be essential. It's going to be different from, you know, a gas boiler goes in and basically the fitter walks away and that's the end of the story. You know, this will require engagement, and it'll be regular. You know, it's for some tenants, we may need to speak to them at the beginning of every winter season to make sure that they understand the system, because ultimately we want this to succeed. So for that to happen, the systems need to be run correctly and as efficiently as possible to save as much money and still keep your house warm. And the only way that works is regular and open engagement with the tenants, that they understand completely. And if they don't, we help them until they do. And in some cases, it may be that we need to change the controllers to suit them. It might be that a simple on and off is all that's required, as opposed to a panel. Who knows? You know, until this is a large scale rollout in social housing, nobody knows. That's just the honest answer. There's no point in trying to sell you something that doesn't, that we don't know the answer to.
In like sheltered schemes and things like that, it might be certain or extra care, maybe the controls are set at a different level rather than individually.
I mean, the thermostats we sell, you can. Sorry, I've just seen there's got that Malcolm Davis. Is that Malcolm Davis? Malcolm Davis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Malcolm wanted to observe this session, but not be part of it. So.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, we can get thermostats. So we can. Am I right, Adam? Can you set them so they're just up and down?
Yeah, you can. The thermostats can be as smart or as simple as needed. Go into the settings, which is all in the instructions, or we can even put a document together. You change it from a programmable to a manual. Literally, then it is like the old dial thermostat. It's just they've got to be manufactured with a timer option, and that does work. I set many a thermostat like that, just so up and down, and that's it. The only downside to that is just remembering that if you turn it up to 20 degrees and forget about it, it's going to chug away at 20 degrees all the time. That's the downside. But again, educate people.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then Malcolm's popped in a link to kind of the ORP program, the Optimized Retrofit program. I really encourage you, if you haven't heard of the program, to go take a look, because it's how we found how we found this, and now we're having a session. So yeah, I mean, go look, and there's different things that housing associations, landlords are doing, and I think that's kind of the whole goal of it, is to see what sticks, and how we even met with Gerald, isn't it? Just talking about kind of what works for your tenants.
Anna, could I just answer? Mel, you asked about your flats. What I would like to emphasize is that no one size fits all. And by the sounds of reading what you've put in there, if it was ours, I would have left what was in there to run, purely because of what would be needed in terms of a program to change. It's not to say that we wouldn't go in and potentially upgrade it, but where you have communal heating, often that is probably the most efficient way of doing it. In that case, changing to a ground source heat pump in those flats would probably be a better option, just in terms of costs, because of the amount of existing pipework. Whereas if you were building from the ground up for something like that, then probably infrared at the start would have made it easier. It's not to say, that ground source, air source, infrared, it just depends on the property, on the situation. It's not one size fits all, as much as I'd love it was.
Yeah. This complex was built in 85. So, it was a very different world then.
Yes, very much so.
Great. And do we have any more questions? I'm conscious that Galvin has to go soon. Galvin and Adam.
We will put some, I'm hoping we can share some slides, and we can put some of the chat together as well. And we will certainly be analysing the chat ourselves for what people are asking, and so we can get a bit more information on this. As I say, there isn't one magic solution, and we think this is an interesting one to be part of the solution that we're all facing of how we decarbonise our homes. Sorry,
mate. No, it's fine. So can I just say that if anyone's got social media, we have quite a big following on social media, so you can see there how we install it in different properties, like tests that we've done, people like testimonials, and also the website. So you can ask anybody, any one of my customers, ask them how they feel about they were treated as a customer, what they think about the products. You can ask, feel free to ask away. But yeah, ASTECtherm on social media, Facebook and Instagram. So,
and I'll send that out on email as well. And then when you guys get into the Sustainable Energy Center, if that happens in Newport, again, I'll pull together a trip, because I think what has been said is true. You do really need to feel it to believe it.
Yeah. No, that's true, 100%. So,
yeah. Well, if there's not any last comments, then we'll start to wrap up. Thanks everybody for attending today. It's been really, really interesting. And thank you so much to Galvin, Adam, and Gerald for joining us today. So you'll see an email from me soon. And other than that, have a good day. Yeah, I think we're all good here.